Welcome to Charlotte's Movie Minute. Today we're going to discuss the Mise scene of No Country for Old Men, breaking down the audio, color, settings, and more. First, the plot. A hunter finds a satchel in West Texas with $2 million and then goes on the run to hide the cash. Not realizing there's a transmitter in the bag, an assassin has been hired to find him and get that money back. Eventually, a sheriff trails them along the way, but doesn't ever act in time to make any difference to the plot. So when the movie opens, we see a dry desert terrain with limited brush and cacti and a barren landscape. This gives the feel of West Texas. Outfits for the time are timeless and simple, but haircuts, cars, and technology all speak to the year that we're in, which we can later easily determine as 1980 when doing some math given to us by the villain who discusses the age of a coin. What I also find interesting of this film is there's no music or score whatsoever. The placement of the characters is inevitably their soundtrack. When they're in the desert, it's windy and quiet, or shootouts are loud and abrasive. Conversations can happen at different intervals, which allows for different emphasis. Costumes and hair also say a lot. So, with the good guys, the sheriff and the hunter, they both wear cowboy hats, have standard haircuts, and wear clothes that are indicative to their day-to-day activities. The villain doesn't wear a hat. He has a rounded bowl haircut that actually makes him stand out a bit, and he wears all black all the time. Not to mention he carries around a pressurized air tank as a weapon and will remove his shoes in times of attack. Let's take a look. So now that we've gotten to see a couple of our characters, let's take a look at what their facial expressions are telling us. The hunter tends to be focused, on guard, covering his tracks, looking over his shoulder. The villain, however, remains emotionless, kind of maniacal. He even smiles when killing at times, and we'll see an example of that later. Also, the lighting and the color in the film really help to tell the story. Typically in the desert, everything's are well lit, brown, tan, natural tones. We get the feeling of the wind and dust, grimy desert heat. And then the darker scenes also tend to emphasize more of those subtleties in the movie. For example, in a shootout in the middle of a town, the killer finds the hunter by identifying a shiny boot print on the street because it's shimmering in a streetlight because it's bloody. So, shifting to symbolism and shapes for a moment, typically with villains, we see sharp or angular shapes that represent them. In this particular film, the villain is represented by circles and rounded shapes. Again, his haircut is a bowl haircut. His weapon is a cylinder that has a rounded trigger function and even produces circular shapes when used. When he has to turn it on, it even requires a circular motion. Determining whether someone lives or dies is used as a coin flip, which is an actual circle. Now that we've identified some of these details, let's take a look at some great framing in this film.
Sheriff, he had some sort of thing on him, like a oxygen tank for emphysema or something, and a hose that run down his sleeve. You got me. Well, you can look at it when you get in. Yes, sir. I got it under control.
Why I find this shot to be an amazing representation of framing is the feeling of unease that we immediately get as soon as the killer who's in the background of the deputy begins to move. He's in a blur, but we as an audience begin to feel anxiety and anticipation for the deputy. He continues to remain unaware as he hangs up the phone saying, "I'm in control," when it's the literal opposite. The next scene, they're rolling around on the floor in a scuffle. This shot shows the deputy clawing at his throat. It gives us a real sense that he's in danger. But then we see a shot of the bottom of their boots. They're thrashing around on the floor, making scuffs, and this isn't a perspective we generally get with a scene like this, and it allows us to feel the chaos without overtly being a part of the chaos of the surroundings. And then finally, at the end of this shot, there's a bird's eye view of the killer taking his win of the kill, and he begins to smile, and the camera twists with his smile, thus making it feel even more sinister.